Alright, so I wanted to do another top calibers video. I've done top deer hunting, I've done top big game, and today I wanted to do one on top calibers if I wanted to buy one gun where I can hunt everything from deer up into moose, right? So the one thing I want to make very clear is that people need to understand my criteria for this too, because in the last videos, I don't think everyone necessarily, some of the comments seem to imply that people didn't necessarily fully understand my criteria and my reasoning. Um, so again, I wanted to say my criteria is you're someone who, again, maybe you're a new shooter, maybe you shoot other things and you wanted to get into, you have, you're a target shooter or something, you want to get into hunting, I don't know. But again, you want to buy one gun, and you want to be able to hunt, like I said, everything from deer up until moose. And now you're trying to figure out, okay, what caliber do I get it in, right? What caliber do I get it in? So again, that's my criteria here. So um, I do have one honorable mention. Again, I like keeping it as a top three. So I do have one honorable mention, and it's the 30-06. And again, why is it not higher? I'm sure there's a lot of guys saying, yeah, 30-06 should be in the top three, and I can understand those arguments. But the reason why I have it technically fourth is I believe the other three are just, especially the top two, I think they're the clear cut. But the reason why I have it a little lower is that for deer, 30-06, it is a little too much power. I mean, I would say even something's a little smaller than a 30-06, or even still too much power for deer, especially up, inside a couple hundred yards or whatever. The one caveat I do have too is that if you reload, uh, I could definitely, I would not, I would not, I would actually think that a 30-06 would actually be a pretty good choice, because if you reload, obviously you can dictate how fast you're going to push these bullets, right? So if you reload, let's say, you want to hunt deer, you could have a load, 150 grain doing, 2,700 feet per second, right? That'd probably be about right for deer. Maybe even that may still even be a little too much, but you wouldn't want to go too low, because the lower you go, the worse ballistics you're going to get. So that is, I guess, the one problem, that the problem with factory 30-06 ammo is it's all going to be overpowered for deer. If you reload, or I do believe there is some factory ammo to where they bring down the charge a little bit, that would be better for deer. In that case, yeah, that would be a good idea. But the problem is that if you bring it too low, like I said, the ballistics are going to start to get worse and worse. But again, if you don't ever shoot past a couple hundred yards, it won't be an issue. But if you do, that will be an issue. So that is something that I think would be important to bring up. But so again, like I said, if you reload, you'll be good, because you could push a bullet a little slower for deer, and you could even push one a little faster for moose, right? So that would be a good thing. So if you reload, I think it's different too, in that most people don't reload. So I'm not gonna get that to change my top ones, because again, the vast majority of people do not reload. The vast majority of people just shoot factory ammo, right? Maybe you know someone who reloads that could do it for you, but again, that's kind of tough if you don't actually. I wouldn't recommend that personally. If you want to do it, go ahead. But again, I wouldn't recommend that personally unless the attention to detail is very high. Um, so again, 30-06 would be my best honorable mention. Number three, I have the 6.5 Creedmoor, and again, a lot of people probably not liking this choice. Probably a lot of people probably are liking this choice, but um, my reasoning for this one was very simple, in that I think that the 6.5 Creedmoors already, aside from the 308s, 223, um, probably, if it's not the next most popular, most shot caliber out there these days. I mean, I don't think it would be for hunting, but as a whole, it's probably very close. And the reason I have it here too is that I project that the 6.5 Creedmoor is going to continue to get more popular. It may never pass the 308, maybe, maybe not, but I think it's going to get more popular. And um, the one thing that I think a lot of new shooters get wrong is that they buy a gun in a really uncommon caliber. And I don't like that. I don't even understand why people do it. To me, it makes absolutely no sense, for the simple reason being that you're probably going to pay more for ammo. And even if you're not going to pay more, it's still going to be harder to find. Like, I don't understand. Like, when people are going to buy a gun, a gun and looking into the calibers, why would you prefer the gun that's gonna, you're gonna go to a gun store and there's gonna be two kinds of ammo to pick from, when you could be buying a gun and a caliber that there's going to be 10 different kinds of ammo to pick from. It just doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Um, but again, the one caveat here too is that for specifically like moose, you're definitely pushing your luck there. So the one thing I would, if you're gonna do it, I would say number one, make sure you have a good quality bullet, and number two, make sure you're placing your shots well. Because again, if you don't have a good quality bullet and or you don't place your shots well, you may not kill it, right? You may not kill it, and if you do, it may run a kilometer off the other direction and you'll never find it, right? So that's something people need to realize. But again, what are the upsides of a 6.5? Well, number one, if you have some of the higher end ammo, it's going to be very flat shooting. It's going to have very good ballistics. It's going to be very accurate. I mean, not to mention too, you're going to have a ton of different kinds of ammo to choose from, which is again something I'm very much supportive of. And again, it's also not going to break the bank too. It's not going to break the bank too. So that's why I have the 6.5 here. So again, at number two, I have the 270, and to me, I think it's a very clear top two. Like, to me, it's a very, very clear top two. Um, why the 270 at two? I think it's very simple. It's got a little more power than the 6.5. That's probably why I would give it the nudge on it. Um, it is relatively flat shooting. It's not super flat shooting. It's going to be pretty average, probably comparable to a 30-06. Again, give or take, um, depending upon the bullet and everything that goes into that. But I think the 270 is one of the best all around, if very close to the best. I think personally, like I said, I think it's the second best. Um, for the simple reason that again, it's been around for again almost 100 years now. 1923 it was designed in. Again, it's tried and true. Um, quite a bit of power. You're looking at it's got a comparable amount of power to a 308. What are you looking at here? In that 26 to 2700 foot pounds range, which is pretty good, right? That's pretty good. Um, maybe even again a little bit more in certain kinds of ammo. Again, if you reload, you could definitely get a little bit more. Again, I think the 270 is one of the perfect um, matches, but the perfect in between not being undergunned for the bigger game stuff, but not being too overgunned for the deer. I think that's the best way of putting it. And then getting into the number one. Again, I have the 308. Again, I think it's still the best all around caliber out there. Again, a lot of people would probably argue differently, but again, to me, the 308 and the 270 I think are neck and neck. I give the edge to the 308 for the simple reason being that number one, the energy is pretty comparable. Like it's pretty comparable, but I give the edge to the 308 because it is going to be a little bigger caliber bullet. Obviously, the 270 being a 27 caliber bullet, 308 being a 30 caliber bullet. Again, the 270 you're going to have a little bit more velocity, but again, the 308 you do have that little bigger bullet. Um, again, the muzzle energy is pretty much the same, but again, I would give the edge to the 308 in that category. A lot of the complaints to the 308 I think are exaggerated. Again, people say it's not overly flat shooting. Well, number one, that's not that big of an issue. Again, like unless you're shooting past 500 yards, which again 99% of people aren't, that's not going to be an issue for it. So that's not something I would worry about. Number two, there is some bullets that are fairly flat shooting in the 308. Again, if you do a little bit of research into that, there's some fairly flat shooting 308 bullets. Um, so to me, that's not even that big of an issue. But again, why do I have it at number one? Again, I think it's the perfect um, in between. That it's not going to be gross. You're not going to be. It's not way too much power for a deer, but it's not way too little power for a moose. Right? That's why I have it at number one. Again, it's the perfect in between, I believe. And again, the other reason I have it at number one too is that aside from 223 5.56, it is going to be the most common kind of ammo. You go to a gun store, again, like I say, aside from 223 5.56, as far as center fire rifle bullets, you're not going to have a better selection other than, like I say, 223 5.56 than 308, right? You're not going to have a better selection unless maybe a bunch of guys that shoot 308 come in and clean up the whole place, maybe. Um, but again, the one thing I want to make clear too, like I said, is that the reason why I'm a fan of these common calibers too is that right now is a perfect time for that too, and that if you go to a gun store, I mean, if you go to a gun store, like I said, I want to have the greatest amount of selection to pick from, right? Let's just say maybe I have this one kind of ammo I really like to shoot, and oh, boom, places are sold out of it. I can't find it. If you shoot some, very uncommon caliber, you may only have one or two different kinds to pick from, right? And maybe those are, you know, dollar or two more a shot than what you normally shoot, or maybe they're very hard to find. Maybe you can only find one box and you want to shoot more than that. I don't know. But that the problem, like I say, with that is that it's a very bad situation to be in. With the 308, with the 270, with the 6.5, with the 30-06, you're never going to run into those issues. There's always going to be a very good selection of ammo. And if there isn't a good selection of those calibers, it's highly unlikely there's going to be a good selection of any other ones, right? And the other thing, like, of being with there being this ammo shortage right now too, is that do you think that Hornady, Federal, like these big ammo manufacturers, do you think they're getting more emails and phone calls about people wondering when they're going to get more 308 or 270, or again, I'm not even going to pick on any specific caliber, but some more obscure one, right? Well, of course, it's the more common one. So, of course, their goal right now, I would assume, is let's ramp up production. I mean, 223, 556 would be the most common one by far, probably, but next would be your 308s, your 270s, and your 6.5s, right? Because that's the next most common stuff. So, um, that is my reasoning. And not to mention, too, another important thing, too, is that if for whatever reason you don't like the gun, maybe you have to move, I don't know. But if you ever try to resell a gun, the more common the caliber, the easier it's going to be to sell. Like again, I had a 308 a few years back that I ended up selling because I had one that was similar, or I ended up getting another one. But again, that doesn't matter. And again, like within a week, I got like $100 less than I paid for the gun, like within a week. And again, so I basically, I got to use a hunting rifle for 2 seasons, two hunting seasons for $100 basically, right? So again, that's another reason that again, like if for whatever reason you need to sell the gun, the more common the caliber, the easier it's going to be to sell it, right? Like um, if you have a Honda Civic that's in good shape versus some more obscure like brand that no one's ever heard of, again, which one's going to sell easier? It's going to be the Honda Civic, right? Of course. So, um, like I said, to me, it doesn't really make any reason to get these more exotic calibers unless you know what you're getting yourself into. Like if you're a very seasoned shooter, you've been hunting for decades, you've been shooting for decades, you know what you're getting yourself into, by all means. But this would be more geared towards new shooters or people that are, maybe they shoot other things. They shoot handguns, they shoot, you know, target rifles, any of that kind of stuff when they were looking to get into hunting. Again, to me, it makes absolutely no sense to buy a more obscure caliber when you're inexperienced, right? And not to mention too, I think most people that have done it would probably tell you that have changed would probably tell you that it's not the right choice, right? Um, and not to mention too, um, if you know other people that are in the business, that are hunting, I mean, um, like chances are, like if you know anyone who's like a hardcore deer hunter, big game hunter, whatever, it's highly unlikely they have a 308, they have a 270, they have a 30-06. Again, those are going to be the most common calibers that other people are going to have. And again, if you ever want to, I don't know, go hunting with them, you ever want to go to the range with them, it's kind of nice to have one caliber, right, that you can both shoot, right? So anyway, like I said, I'm just bringing up reasons that to kind of back up what I'm saying. So anyway, those are my top calibers. Again, honorable mention 30-06, number 3 6.5 Creedmoor, number 2 270, and number 1 308. So anyway, like I said, if you like the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more.